Okay, welcome fellow missionaries. This is Artie Pingle from Mission Project Service on the first in what we're calling a mini webinar series. And as you can see, the title for the series is Understanding How Funders Are Different. Understanding how funders are different. There's thousands of funders out there. And I think if we approach it with an understanding that many of them fall into separate, distinct categories, it can help us look at the entire funding landscape. Let's take a look at understanding how funders are different. You know, why did we pick that as a topic? Why? Well, the goal of MPS is to make all of you out there in your work more efficient, more effective, and more strategic. And part of that, remember, is the model that we follow at MPS. It's what's called project cycle management. So all of you, wherever you're at, you have your mission. And during the course of that mission, you identify needs. Then you actually formulate a project to address that needs. And then this is where MPS comes in. In that cycle, you need to obtain funding, and then you implement the project and you evaluate it. And then I add, because you won't see this on project cycle management models out there, I say you're willing to modify. So knowing that this is the context, it is worth knowing about the type of funders out there, because many of them, almost all of them will ask you to evaluate. Many of them will even ask you to modify. They'll be watching your implementation of it. They'll want to understand your mission. So all of these things are good to have in mind as we understand that different funders require different levels of all of these. So obviously we're dealing with funders. Oh, and by the way, my little pointer here, for those of you out there all over the world who like the Harry Potter series, I just wanted to tell you that this right here is a replica of Dumbledore's wand. So I can't say that it's gonna make me any more magical or this work, but it is what I'm using. If for any of you who are Harry Potter fans and you're wondering, this is Dumbledore's replica of his wand. So, okay, so funders, what are we looking at? They're the same in a few different ways. They'll tell you what they fund. They'll tell you, or you can usually find out how much. And then you can usually find out what the procedures are. The procedures might be awful, almost meant to keep you away, but nonetheless, they all have some kind of procedures. But let's proceed, and this webinar, mini webinar series proceeds from the view that they're all different. They may fall into some general different categories, but even within that, they're different. And why? Well, they all have different strategies. They have different histories. Some of these foundations are hundreds of years old. Some are 10 years old. They have different culture. Some are very dominated by young people. Some, it's the same older family members that got together 20 or 30 years that are still in the room today. Some are structured differently. They give votes to family members. Some wait for the staff to recommend, and they just basically give an okay. So in some cases, the staff or the board are different. They're also different in terms of how they engage project cycle management. Some of them really look for a more sophisticated understanding from all of you. Some, as we'll talk shortly about, are very different. Now, to understand all these differences, you can go to their website, you can make a personal visit, and we'll talk about all of these over the course of our mini webinars. You can go to their website, you can make a personal visit if possible. You can use third-party research. That could be any number of fundraising consultants. I'll talk about one source called GuideStar that I think is very helpful. You can use an organization like us, MPS. We can tell you where the funds are and give you some basic guidance about how to move forward. And frankly, you can talk to other missionaries. Chances are each of you know somebody who has applied to a foundation successfully, gotten a grant, and they can tell you what that felt like, what the process is like, what feedback they got. So you can learn from other missionaries. So as we move ahead in this webinar series based on Mission Project Service, our consultants, my experience, and missionaries like you out there, there appear to be about really 6 different kinds of funders that you're going to encounter over the course of your career as a grant writer or as an advisor for your congregation or diocese. The first of these are the smaller, what I call the one and done foundations. in the sense they're very simple, what they are going to do. They're very clear about what they do. They're probably the easiest of the foundations to work with. The second one are the ones who are still smaller, but they have this integral concern. They would be ones that really value the project cycle management approach, and that will make things perhaps a little bit more difficult, but there are rewards that go along with their difficulty. A third would be the large foundations. They have a lot of money to give away. They give small grants and they give large grants away. And they're almost all integral. They're almost all professionally staffed and follow the project cycle management model. Third, a separate group I call church administered, and I say Episcopal here, because the bishop, the local ordinary, and in some cases, the superior of the congregation is particularly important. Their approval and their endorsement is particularly important. So those are church administered. 5 will be government, and government is going to include individual funds that particular governments has set up, as well as embassies and other government-run or government-supported NGOs. And then finally, we have what are called mega foundations. Some of those names easily come to mind. Actually, the largest is Novo Nordisk out of Denmark. Second, and this always surprises a lot of people, second is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then third is the IKEA Foundation, that furniture company. So all of those, you might say, well, what would I ever have to do with getting funding from them? You might be surprised, but we'll talk about that. That's the mega foundations. And then, and finally, in one of our little bonus segments, we're going to actually do a live GuideStar search to walk you through the steps as to how you can do that. So this gives you an idea. This is how we break it down. We'll dig into detail for all of these probably over the course of the next 4 to 5 weeks. So that's what we intend to do. Thank you very much, and I look forward to spending more time with you on this mini webinar series. Thank you.